The BBC took it upon itself to explain to the world the camgirls industry in Romania. The problem is that is not exactly news, but even if we set that aside, it still leaves the problem of lying. Now, I don't know exactly why the BBC lied, although I have a few working theories and speculations, but I'll tell you exactly how they lied. Let's explore. Hello everyone and welcome to the Freedom Alternative. Alright, so by the time I publish this, I'll be way into the Georgia-Armenia tour, but when I set this topic aside, the article was less than a day old. Anyway, the reason I'm covering this is because I happen to know quite a lot about the video chat industry, more than the average person and more than the consumers actually. Now, how I got to know that is a story for another time, preferably off camera and with supporters over at a beer. But suffice to say that you're better off hearing about this story from me than you are from the British Brainwash Corporation. And it's getting increasingly annoying to have to work to correct the cathedral. I'm not paid enough for this. Anyway, so the story from the BBC is titled "Camgirls Inside the Romanian Sex Scam Industry." And right from the title, the first misleading claim. Yes, it is technically correct, but still misleading. Saying the sex scam industry leads the reader to believe there is a massive collection of operations in this regard, and that was true 10 to 15 years ago. That's why I said it's not news. The article is at least 7 years late. It's like you'd publish an article about the Haitian earthquake. Intriguing, maybe, but not news. Anyway, so let's read then, and I'll explain point by point, and then at the end, maybe complete it a little bit and offer the portions that the BBC did not include, either because they did not know them or because they did not fit the narrative. So, quote, "Interactive webcamming is the fastest growing sector in the global pornography business. In Romania, thousands of women work as camgirls from studios and from home. It's a 24/7 market, the majority of clients logging in from North America and Western Europe." And here's the first mistake. As this article will reveal later on, virtually all of the providers, the camgirls and boys, use one platform, and the platform is called Live Jasmine. Now, Live Jasmine comes with its own regulations. One such regulation is to incentivize or even mandate that the client and the provider be on different continents. Surely the author knew that. If he didn't, then he's a crap journalist. If he knew, then he's a liar throughout the article, and as he repeats the claim, even though in reality, even if you wanted to, you can't get a client from Western Europe while you're broadcasting from Romania. Not on Live Jasmine, anyway. So, if you can't trust the BBC to at least get the small facts correct, what can you exactly trust them for? But it gets progressively worse. Quote, "In the heart of Bucharest, on the pavement outside a tall apartment building, a group of young women smoke, talk and laugh. It's an unremarkable scene, except that in the bright morning sunlight, their heavy makeup, sky-high heels, and shiny revealing clothes contrast with the sensible summer dress of passers-by. Inside the building, Studio 20 occupies the first and second floors. 40 rooms open off pristine white corridors, their walls adorned with pictures of women in states of glamorous undress. A closed door means business. Inside that room, a woman is live and direct via webcam with the international clients, and as long as she's alone in that room, it is entirely legal. In this world of virtual relationships and cyber sex, those in front of the camera are models, and the men who watch are members. Lana works in room number 8. It is dominated by a circular bed with cushions. There is a wardrobe containing some of her clothes. I usually go for dresses, lingerie, or leather, she says. In a corner of the room, there is a large computer screen, an expensive camera, and behind them, professional photographers' lights. Dozens of pairs of eyes may view Lana in her room online in real time via dedicated adult websites, but she does not make any money until a member asks her to go private in a one-on-one webcam session. Working an 8-hour day, she earns close to 4,000 euros per month, nearly 10 times the Romanian average wage. As Lana's employer, Studio 20 also makes 4,000 euros per month from her online sessions. And at the top of the video chat money-making pyramid, Live Jasmine, the online site that streams Studio 20's content and is responsible for collecting payment from the credit cards of clients, takes double than that, 8,000 euros. Okay, so Studio 20 is a 50-50 studio. Not all studios are like that. What the author does here is, though, lying through omission. For instance, he says this lady makes nearly 10 times the Romanian average wage. Per year, per month, before taxes, after taxes. You don't get to learn that. Also, you don't get any analysis on what costs she incurs, or a fair comparison for that matter. Because while it is true that the average wage in Romania after taxes is around 510 euros, give or take, the comparison is not relevant. It's like comparing the wage of a worker in City of London, the banking area, with Britain's national average, which includes areas like Blackpool or Coventry that economically they're better compared with some sub-Saharan African areas. A much fairer comparison is to compare the City of London worker with the rest of London, or in this case, compare this girl's income with the average in Bucharest, because if you do that, then suddenly you no longer have the soundbite of nearly 10 times average, which is really less than 8 times, and you can no longer build or sustain the narrative that these girls are being oppressed. This is what I routinely call scientific lying. It looks true, it doesn't outright say false things, but it is, overall, false. That's one thing. Secondly, the author doesn't say anything about the costs, so we're supposed to believe that this girl takes home 4,000 euros a month, which is not exactly true. While it is indeed true that most studios have various arrangements to avoid the huge level of taxation on regular employees, that still doesn't mean much, because a successful model spends a lot on herself or himself, because there's also some men in this business, if the model wants to remain successful, and successful models really do. Anyway, let's read more. Quote, Live Jasmine is the largest internet cam host in the world. Between 35 and 40 million users visit it daily, and at any given moment there are 2,000 models live online. It is not hard to understand how the webcam industry overall generated an estimated of $2 to $3 billion in 2016. Lana is a graduate who worked in real estate until the global economic crash of 2008 plunged Romania into recession. This is when she first took up video chat. Her first day in front of the camera has stayed with her. I was alone in the room and it felt like there were hundreds of people around me, and I couldn't keep up with what they were all saying and what they were asking of me. It was quite shocking, but then I learned to be perceptive about which member was a potential paying customer and not to waste time with all of them in the free online space. So what happens in private webcam one-to-one? Well, mostly it's conversation. I do roleplay sometimes, and a small part of it is nudity and masturbation, she says. While the members sometimes try to push her to do things she doesn't want to do, she's able to set the pace. It's up to you as a woman to lead, and that's quite empowering. The important thing is to keep a paying client online for as many minutes as possible. You have 10 minutes of being cute and sexy, and then you better have something to talk about, because otherwise the member will not stay, says Andra Kirnogianu, Studio 20's PR manager. To this end, Studio 20 employs trainers, a psychologist, and an English teacher. Most of the clients are North American and European, so it is essential the models can communicate with them. But the English teacher, Andrea, has a remit that goes far beyond language skills. I teach them about fetishes, what a fetish is, why a person has one. We study Freud and a lot of psychology, and we study a book of gestures because women must be sensual, smart, and beautiful. Now that part is true, in toto, as they say. But I have to say, This particular studio is more advanced than the average, and not just the average here, but the European average too. Anyway, let's read some more. Geography is important too, so the models can talk about where the members are from. That or exotic places, says Andrea. This is not only a sex business as some people think. Models have to speak with a member as if they're in a normal online relationship. Being able to discuss many subjects brings comfort to both parties. Studio 20 is the largest studio webcam franchise in the world. It has 9 branches in Romania, including one employing cam boys who service the gay market. Its other branches are in the Colombian city of Cali, Budapest, and Los Angeles, and that is also true but incomplete. For instance, why do you think this particular corporation keeps branches in Bucharest, Timișoara, Cali, Colombia, Budapest, Hungary, and Los Angeles? It's not random, and it's not by accident. First of all of these locations, except Los Angeles, have minimal or no regulation on either the internet or pornography. Second of all of these locations are historically known to have had a constant and consistent prostitution sector. In other words, at any given moment in time in the last 2 or 3 centuries, you could be sure you would be able to find people willing to do sex work or prostitution-related activities. Now, some would say this applies to all big cities, and that's somewhat true, but if you have to choose between Bucharest and Belgrade based on this criterion, you will always choose Bucharest. Or if you have to choose between Budapest and Bratislava, you will always choose Budapest. Thirdly, all of these locations, with the exception of Cali, are cities with top-tier broadband speeds, which is exactly what you need if you're going to broadcast 24/7 in 1080p or higher quality. Heck, in 2015, 9 out of the first 15 cities in terms of fast internet in the world were from Romania. Not having those studios here would be an immense opportunity lost, and everyone knows it. And finally, fourthly, you want to put your studios in cities where you have easy access to slim, attractive people, especially women. And all of these locations are full of just that. But I guess they couldn't print that, because then it would render most of the rest of the article useless. Because the point of this article is to be a sob story instead of a realistic business perspective report. So let's read more. Quote, "Not all models work from a studio. Sandy Bell, a graduate with 2 university degrees, is one of a small army of women who webcam from home. She makes about €100 a day when she goes online to supplement her income as an interior designer. One advantage of being independent and dealing directly with a web hosting company is that she earns a larger percentage of members' fees. Mostly they're nice guys, not crazy men," she says. There are a lot of members looking for love. They want a connection. Some members want you to call their name or to talk to them while you dance and strip. I'm very honest with them. They know I have a boyfriend, and they know we're not going to have sex in real life." Close quote. Sandy Bell's partner lives with her in their high-rise flat on the outskirts of Bucharest. He knows what she does, but her parents do not. It's not uncommon in this industry, even for studio owners, to hide their occupations for family and friends. This accounts for the fact that those who talked to the BBC in Bucharest prefer to use their cam name or just a first name. Unlike many who work in the sex industry, Sandy Bell does not worry about her own security. "What can a member do to me? If he crosses a line, or even if he's rude to me, I just click the mouse and stop it. And I can talk to the administrator on the website, and they ban the IP address so the guy can never enter again if he changes his nickname. I mean, those people are thousands of miles away from me. They don't touch you. Nobody touches you. You go online and you work online alone. This has nothing to do with prostitution." Now, while I would disagree this is not prostitution, I'm fully confident that the quote is legit, because this is how virtually all camgirls think. At least the ones from Romania and Hungary, and that's because this is the general mentality of women in the intermarium. They only see themselves as victim when they are, not when some idiot ideologue tells them to be. Anyway, from this point on comes a lot more scientific lying, so let's read. Is Sandy Bell a victim? She says she's not, though feminists such as Irina Elisei say the question is more complicated than it seems. Quote, do we talk about women who are forced to do this? Are they women who choose it? Or perhaps they do it because they are psychologically manipulated or they have a lack of economic stability? Probably it's a combination of all these factors. Elisei believes the push factors include Romania's high rate of teenage pregnancy and the fact that 30% of those who finish higher education cannot find a job. Oh boy. Someone stop the rotors for a second. We'll helicopter her later. First of all, Irina Elisei is a communist. She's with the National School of Political Studies and Public Administration, or the CNSPA. Think of it like the Oberlin College, only slightly less retarded. I mean, they don't have trigger warnings yet. Elisei is also a prominent author in the magazine Critic Attack, a purulent rag that routinely defends Stalinist killings, has prominent Maoists amongst its authors, and is generally the headquarters of helicopterables, not just from this country, but also from France for some reason. So asking Irina Elisei asking her anything about anything is a mistake. Asking her take on an industry that she knows absolutely nothing about shows the extremist bias of this author, but doesn't inform the public that much. If anything, it disinforms the public. For instance, she mentions the teenage pregnancy rate as a contributing factor. Well, the United Kingdom is the third EU country in terms of teenage pregnancy rate. Romania is second. So if the teenage pregnancy rate is a factor, then how come there isn't a comparable industry in the United Kingdom? Or in Bulgaria, which has a higher teenage pregnancy rate than Romania? Maybe, just maybe, teenage pregnancy is irrelevant to the topic? But then again, Elisei, like all other feminist helicopterables, only know one story. Women are powerful and independent, except in matters of sex. Then suddenly women are stupid and irrational, and whatever they're doing, it's men's fault or society's fault by default. This is really how feminists think, if you call what feminists do thought. Also, Elisei brings up a lie. She says there, quote, the fact that 30% of those who finish higher education cannot find a job, that is a lie. Now, if that were true, then youth unemployment in this country would be around 40%, like in Greece or Spain. But it isn't. It's under 20%. Sure, it's high, but nowhere near as high as this disdainful communist claims. And on a continent riddled with youth unemployment, I would even argue it's quite good. What is true, though, is that around 30% of fresh graduates don't find a job in the field they studied. But this includes those who don't actively seek a job in their field, for whatever reason, and of course the obligatory cohort of people who graduated in nonsense. Like Irina Elisei, PhD in Educational Inequalities of Gypsies. And no, I'm not joking. So yeah, if you graduate cum laude in disdainful nonsense, you will have trouble finding a job in your field or even finding a job in the first place, since most of these graduates turn up their noses on real work because, you see, they already fancy themselves as intellectuals, even though none of them ever produced an original thought in their entire miserable lives. But wait, there's more from this communist. Quote, the webcam industry also does its best to entice young women into the business. There are advertisements on university campuses, says Elisei. Students get direct Facebook messages with offers of work, and the studios are very corporate, exactly like an entry career job in other fields. The language is all about empowering young women, being independent, learning skills, even getting bonuses if you convince your friends to try it too. Yeah, so? No, seriously, so what? I mean, if you're not a communist, and most people aren't, thank goodness, it is quite hard to make the case that any of these women are victims just because they got hired in a video chat studio after seeing an advertisement in a campus or got a Facebook message with an offer to work. Also, as a point of information, there aren't exactly campuses in the way British or American people might think of. Like most of continental Europe, campuses here are not secluded from the rest of the society. Neither are the dorm rooms. In fact, some dorm rooms can't even be distinguished from a far distance from normal residential buildings. And this is in part by design. The mentality is, and has been for quite some time, that you go to the university to become an adult, so the point is to stimulate as much as possible the life of a normal tax-paying adult. Growing up and stop being a whiny bitch is incentivized every step of the way. Now, some may think that's harsh, but I personally think that's very good. In fact, I think it doesn't go far enough. And this is why we can't have nice things. 2/3 into the article, and most of it was incomplete, misleading, or outright false. And for the British followers, you paid for this shit. If all the British followers would donate to this channel the shekels they now pay to the BBC, they would unquestionably get a far superior value for their money. Anyway, let's read further. Quote, here come the sub-stories. For Lana, 31, webcamming has provided enough money for her to bring up her daughter alone and to think about investing money in something that will bring money to the country. She plans to give up in 2 years' time. But some women are not free to make the choices Lana has. Wana, 28, counts herself as an escapee from the sex industry. At 16, a minor, she fell in love with a boyfriend who persuaded her to do video chat. He told me I just had to talk, that's all. But he was in the room with me and we made pornography there. It is illegal in Romania for a man and a woman to webcam together, but it is impossible to say how commonly the law is flouted in the way Wana describes. Now that is a lie. Seriously. I spent 4 hours trying to find the law that says it's illegal to webcam together with another person, and I was unable to find anything of the sort. Which makes sense because pornography is not illegal, so why would live stream pornography be illegal? It makes no sense. The Pornography Prevention Act of 2003, or Law number 196 per 2003, which is the law that regulates all porn-specific activities, including video chat studios, makes absolutely no mention of this. In fact, the opposite is mentioned in the law. Chapter 2, Article 8 says, quote, pornographic movies, regardless of the technology used to make them, shall only be rented or sold in specifically designated spaces and shall not be rented or sold to minors, close quote. Now, the internet, via a video chat platform, is a legally recognized specially designated space. And the phrase, regardless of the technology used to make them, means that live streaming is fair game. Remember, unlike France, in this country the old Roman principle still applies, namely that what is not explicitly forbidden is implicitly permitted. So the claim that it is illegal for a man and a woman to webcam together is quite simply a lie. Now, the case could be made that in this particular situation described in the BBC article may have been illegal, but we can't be sure because they say this girl fell in love with her boyfriend when she was 16, but he talked her into it right away or a year and a half later when she was a major. The article doesn't mention, so it could be either way. If it's the former, then yes, it would be illegal under Article 9 of the same law. If the latter, then no, it would not have been illegal at all since she doesn't claim she was forced, but only talked into it. It's like I would claim to have been abused because 2 followers of this channel talked me into using Bitcoin. It's absurd. Also, even though I said this in other videos too, I'll say it again. It is absurd to be able at the age of 16 to get married, work, pay taxes, have children, be criminally accountable like anyone else, have an abortion, or even leave the country without parental consent or permission, but suddenly you're a victim of child porn if you webcam while having sex with your boyfriend? Give me a freaking break. But then again, this particular idiocy is the norm in almost all countries' legislation, so there's that. Okay, let's read more from the sob story. Quote, She went on to work as a prostitute in Germany until she found the courage to return to Bucharest and a new life. Now she works in sex work prevention, talking to young women about her experiences and trying to persuade them of the danger of video chat. There are girls who think they will just stay in front of the camera and make money, but all the things they do there will affect their minds. The next step is prostitution. I see that now. Lana disagrees. It's about selling your brain, not your body, she says. I see it like a performance, like a show. But this is not a job for everybody. A lot of girls quit after a few weeks or even days because they have this mindset that they're selling their body. Your mindset is what matters in this job. I have my limits and I truly do not feel exploited. And this latter lady just hit the nail in the head. Yeah, it's not a profession for everybody. Shocker! Most professions are not for everybody. But the idea that the next step from this is prostitution is easily refuted by asking actual hookers. You'll immediately notice that most of them don't even know about video chat, let alone having worked in this sub-industry. Yes, video chat is part of the sex industry and it is prostitution related, but they're not the same job. That's why the pay is different, the environment is different, and also the skills required are different. Now, I may be wrong, but I suspect this particular case was chosen because she worked as a hooker in Germany. Many people may not know this, but there is a consistent bias inside the BBC, against the German prostitution industry. They've been trying for years now to paint that industry as all sorts of horrible things. Now, the data, as usual, insisted on disagreeing with the progressive narrative, but that didn't stop the progressives from trying. Anyway, last portion of the article, quote, Andra Kirnogiannou, Studio 20's PR manager, also rejects the idea that this is risky or psychologically damaging work. It is psychologically damaging to stay 12 hours in an office getting paid the minimum wage, she said. But the fact that models often seek to conceal their job is perhaps telling. If Lana and Sandy Bell could have made a good living using their qualifications and other work experience, would they still have chosen to undress for clients in New York, Frankfurt, and London? And the answer, for some of them, is yes. Again, as I've shown earlier in the video, it's not a significantly better living than the average after taxes wage in Bucharest once you account for the expenses that models have, expenses that normal people can't even think they exist, let alone properly assess them. So that's one thing. Secondly, the article says using their qualification, but they don't say which are those qualifications. Because, as I said earlier, all countries have, and this one is of no exception, an obligatory cohort of people who graduate in nonsense. And graduating in nonsense means low wages. Nowhere in the world will you make 4,000 euros a month after taxes at age 22 with your degree in gender studies. It's really that simple. Also, while this article doesn't say, I'm pretty confident that those degrees that one of them flaunts are either in nonsense, such as psychology, European studies, or similar stuff, or from a poorly rated university, the so-called diploma factories, which again exist in every single country in the world. If you really want to blame society for something, blame society for creating unreasonable expectations and thus incentivizing stupid decisions through retarded mentalities, such as the retarded mentality that everyone not only should but deserves to go to college, or the retarded mentality that just because you have a degree you're automatically entitled to a bigger starting wage. It doesn't really work like that, especially here where the market is much freer and employers rarely give a shit how many papers you have and rely a lot more on testing and performance rewards. But going back to the loaded question in the last paragraph, the answer for many of them, as I said, is yes. Remember, there are video chat studios everywhere. In the US, most of them are located in Las Vegas and Los Angeles, and the earnings there are identical to the earnings here, because this is a global and standardized industry. So at 4,000 euros a month after taxes, that means per year more than an account manager or project manager in Los Angeles. Also, you can be sure that if the UK had less retarded laws, more studios would spring up there too. There are already quite a few, but more would open up. After all, the average gross annual wage for people working in inner London is about £35,000. That's 38,000 euros before taxes. These cam girls make 48,000 after taxes. So you're telling me that at least some British women would not flock to at least try to work in these studios? Get real. Now, does it come with trade-offs? Of course. But in the end, for many cam girls, regardless of whether they are or where they work from, this is a type of work that they deemed rewarding enough to be worth the hassle. Most of them would view this kind of work, correctly I might add, as a much easier way to make a good living than many quote-unquote proper jobs. And who the hell are the communists and the BBC to tell them they're wrong? I mean, again, many of these girls make more than highly educated people in positions of high responsibility. So it's not rocket science to figure out why there isn't a shortage of women willing to try, regardless of the country we're talking about. Now, you will notice that I didn't make any moral claims or comments on that regard so far, and that's because what I said so far is true regardless of how one views this issue morally. Would I be thrilled to learn my niece works in this industry? Of course not. But I tell you what, I wouldn't try to stop her either, because unlike other issues such as abortion or classical prostitution, this is an activity where there really is not even the potential of someone being hurt, nor of someone accidentally or non-consensually getting involved. I mean, the activist quoted in the article says it's quote-unquote psychologically damaging, but then one has to ask, compared to what? Because the PR lady is correct with the retort, well, it's psychologically damaging to stay 12 hours in an office getting paid a minimum wage. They're both correct in a way, but then again, life itself is psychologically damaging. And the pretense that this particular work, this particular type of work is worse than, let's say, working in a call center is quite fishy to me. No matter how you look at it, there are tons of jobs that are less paid and far more demanding out there. So unless you want to make the case that all psychologically damaging jobs should be banned, you will excuse me if I don't heed to the full moral outrage over cam girls. And you will also excuse me if I remark once again that the BBC is a fake news outlet and an institution that should immediately be decoupled from the state. Let them survive on the free market with this garbage. I mean, apart from the slightly more polished language, this garbage report is only marginally different from what I would expect from The Sun or the Daily Mail. And by marginally different, I mean marginally worse. At least the tabloids work on two speeds, honest or full lies. Tabloids don't have the time nor the will to concoct scientific lying. That's only for serious publications. And with all of that being said, thank you all for watching. Thank you for your consistent and generous support. Follow me on the usual social media, Gab, Twitter, and Facebook. And I'll see you all soon on Freedom Alternative.